Hey everyone, I'm Scott. Welcome to another Cooking Connection virtual cooking class. Tonight, it's Friday. It's all about Friday night family pizza night. I'm excited to show you a bunch of stuff. Number one, I'm really excited because, as always, Chef Charlotte Samuel's here. She'll be in the chat. She'll be answering questions, helping me out, fact-checking everything that I say and do, just to make sure, keep us honest, right? Thanks for being here again, Charlotte, as always, co-pilot. I'm really excited about pizza because I'm going to show you how I do pizza at my house. But that's not all. You're going to see the entire menu we're going to do. We have a very ambitious menu that we're going to get after first and foremost. But it is all about that classic Neapolitan pizza. Now, if you are attending this class, you're going to watch it online later on our YouTube channel, and you're going, hey, Scott, I looked at the recipe, and doesn't classic Neapolitan-style pizza have to have 00 flour? I'm glad you're here, and you're exactly right. We're using bread flour in our recipe today. However, I am going to show you our 00 flour recipe. I'm going to do the 00 flour because we carry both. But if you don't have 00 flour at your local H-E-B, totally fine. You can substitute with bread flour. But for this recipe, I love the 00 flour. I love what it does to the crust. Bread flour, which I've also made some dough out of the bread flour. I'll also show you, totally fine. The Neapolitan, classic Neapolitan, Charlotte and I got into this. We did some research just to fact check ourselves. Classic Neapolitan pizza, there's some specific rules that you have to follow. You can actually get certified as a Neapolitan pizza place, but you have to follow the certain rules of Neapolitan pizza napolitana. You have to follow the certain rules of it. Now, if you use bread flour or you throw a little sugar in your dough, the Neapolitan police are not going to kick down your door and throw away your pizza and scare your children. They're not going to do that. It's just us, so we're going to make the pizza how we want to do it. But I'm excited to show you a lot of tips and tricks and great techniques that you won't find in just the recipe. I'm going to show you, walk you through how to do all the great things like words like autolyse we're going to use. We're going to talk about hydration rates. We're going to talk about different kinds of flour. We got some graphics. Yes. What else am I missing, Charlotte? Oh, and will you give the folks at home who are watching some of the facts about what makes Neapolitan pizza specifically Neapolitan?
Oh my gosh, well you definitely put me on the spot now.
We went down a wormhole earlier.
I know. So what, Naples style pizza, so which is actually the grandfather of what we know as New York style pizza.
The New York style pizza, thin crust.
Right, thin crust, and then there's always the tomato, the cheese, and of course the dough, and the dough is the biggest part of it. It's typically the San Marzano or the Pomodoro.
Yes, San
tomato.
Marzano.
Yes.
And San Marzanos are a lot like champagne, right? They have to come from a certain region.
Yes.
They're certified. There's all this stuff. So
it's also it's like been recognized by UNESCO as like a destination for pizza. It is I'm not sure if it's DOC, but
I'm pretty sure there's some certifications.
There's
some certifications, but the basic thing we're going to show you is how simple it is to combine flour, water, yeast, and salt, maybe a little bit of olive oil and something else, and make a fantastic pizza dough that you can do over and over and over again. But I want some words of caution to not discourage you at all. I made this pizza dough for a year before I finally got the right hydration, the right mix rate, all that stuff. So I'm going to take you through my failings, and you're going to see how easy it is to actually make. But if you don't get your circle right, if you tear your dough, whatever it is, don't give up. Keep at it because it's a lot of fun to do with your kids, and it's really, really easy to do once you get the hang of it. So my tip to you is keep practicing, and don't let one failed pizza, or if it tears or whatever, don't worry. I'm going to show you how to do some saving techniques for your dough, and we'll show you even bad shaped dough is still going to taste delicious. So it's totally fine. It's kind of like melted chocolate that if you try to go and make something and it's all over the place, it's still melted chocolate even though it's all over the place. It may not look pretty. Still tastes good.
It's going to taste great. It's going to be fun, and it's something to do with your family. We've got a really quick question.
Yes.
Someone wants to know if you could use all-purpose flour.
You can. So that's my other thing. So typically in New York, for New York pizza, they're either going to use sometimes a mix of bread flour all-purpose. Sometimes they'll use a pastry and a bread. Typically it's a bread flour, or it could be just a straight-up all-purpose flour. The only difference is the bread flour and 00 flour. 00 is specifically milled, and we'll talk about this a little bit later. It's specifically milled for pizza. All-purpose is fine. The protein is fine. The only thing you're going to have to look for is just how long you need to knead your dough, and then just how much hydration it may use, because there's certain types of flour that are a little finer grind, a little tougher grind. So, but typically this ratio of the 2.5 to 2 2 3/4 cups, there it is, 2 3/4 cups of water is perfect for the 2.2 pounds of flour. Why the 2.2 pounds? It's a very weird, arbitrary number. Well, because that's what this weighs. So it's one container of this, so it's like literally try to make it as easy as possible. Now, because you're using bread flour, if you're using bread flour, you can measure it out. I feel like 2.2 pounds of flour, and somebody can dispute this if I'm wrong. When I used to do it, we'd measure it, it's about 2 heaping quarts full of flour is about the 2.2 pounds, like give or take, it's around that. So just so you know, like kind of for measurement's sake, that's what we're doing here. We're doing ours fairly classic. I am going to use a double O flour. If you're following along with pizza, totally fine. Following along with double O or with all-purpose, totally fine. It starts with water. I'm using room temperature water. I'm not going to bloom my yeast. I'll tell you why. And I've got olive oil and salt. So olive oil for me in this pizza dough is going to act as a preservative. It's also going to act as a flavor enhancer. Now, in typical pizza napolitana, they may not use the olive oil. It's typically just the double O flour, water, salt, yeast. Now, fresh yeast is great. I don't like working with fresh yeast because number one, it dies fast in the fridge if you're not making it every single day. Great for restaurants, but I like just dry active yeast. This is just everyday, regular old H-E-B, pick it up in the baking aisle, active dry yeast.
You can use Fleshman's, like...
Yep, just don't use, you don't need platinum. I'll explain, platinum yeast you can find, you could use, but that's meant for like enriched doughs. So a lot of butter, a lot of oil, a lot of fat, like those, that's meant for that. All you need, simple active dry yeast. Don't use the super fast yeast. What's it called? The fast rising.
Okay, so quick rise. Okay, so just a couple of questions before we get into that dough.
I get rolling.
This dough does make quite a bit. This recipe does. After you've mixed the dough and after you've like added the yeast and let it rise, you can portion out and freeze it.
Yes.
Correct?
We have done tests with it. Thank you. We've done tests. You can absolutely freeze the dough. Although, what you'll find is when I do my dough, the same thing, 2.2 pounds, I find makes about 4, like I would say 16 to 20 inch pizzas, or you can make them a little smaller. Like I've got two different sizes here. You'll see the pepperoni pizza. That's like a 10 inch. So if you could make a couple of smalls, a couple of mediums, and if you have leftovers, just make it all, because who doesn't like a cup of coffee and cold pizza in the morning? Or
I do.
Yeah,
I love that.
On a pizza, it's very Italian. They
and
eat
then
pizza and coffee like that. I'm assuming. I only assume.
So one more quick question.
Yes.
So we were talking about flours.
Yes.
If you wanted to do like whole wheat flour, if you had a whole wheat, would that affect maybe how much moisture you added?
Yeah, if you're going to use a whole wheat flour, I would say practice first with regular flour to kind of understand, because that's the biggest thing is understanding like what it's going to feel like and kind of looking at it. And I think whole wheat flour is very, another word for it's thirsty. It's a very thirsty flour. It's got the it's got the germs, it's got all that stuff with it.
Yeah.
So I would say practice first with an all-purpose, but then you can always add in, take out a cup of, when you get your flour, take out a cup of the all-purpose bread, double O, and sub in a cup of whole wheat just to kind of give it a little more texture, a little more flavor.
I like that idea.
Versus like going full, because full all wheat's going to be, number one, it's going to be chewy, and it's going to be really like, like a whole wheat. I don't know, I'm just assuming.
But if you have the right hydration level,
if you have the right hydration level,
could have,
which is we're going to talk right now.
We're
so I'm
going
going
to
to start the first dough. So we're always going to start.
Okay.
So now, if you have a stand mixer, you could absolutely do this in a stand mixer. Because we're doing it in the Napolitana style, most of the time they will do it by hand because they want to be able to feel the dough. It's about a 15-minute knead if you're going to do it in the mixer, which is what the recipe says. This is what's going to develop the gluten. So we're going to start with the water. I always start with water first. If you start with the flour and then add your water to it, there's a good chance, especially if you're using a mixer, you're going to get a big dry pocket of flour that's just kind of sitting there clumped up. So always start with the water first and put everything else on top. Now, why don't I bloom my yeast? Well, it's dry active yeast, so I don't technically really need to bloom it. As soon as it hits the water, it's going to start to wake it up. Now, you can if you want to use warm water, but honestly, I hate waiting for stuff. So I'm like, I throw it in the water, I'll mix everything up, and I'll let it sit. But I'd rather start doing a step, which I'm going to call out in a second, called auto-leasing. I'm going to add the olive oil. Again, kind of acts as a preservative, acts a little flavor. I'm not going to add my salt yet. Now, in Italy, I worked at a place called Ciccone's in West Hollywood. Great place, fantastic Italian chefs. And they would always add the salt with the water. And that's just how they did it. They would mix the salt with the water. I find it makes the dough a little tough because when the salt hits it, it's going to toughen up a little bit. I like to add the salt on top of the flour and kind of generally do it because typically, yeast gets killed by, salt kills yeast. So you kind of introduce it slowly. Now they did it and it did fresh cake yeast. So that was a little trick they did. But I like to put the flour on. Salt goes in last. So I'm using the flour as a buffer. When I start mixing it, then the flour will get in. I'll incorporate the salt. So now the recipe calls for kosher salt. But what I've learned over my pizza making, I'll give you this tip, is that just using plain sea salt helps in not cutting the gluten. So when you're forming the bread, I've just found this over doing it, if you use kosher salt, I doubt you'll be able to tell a difference, but when you start doing it enough, you'll go, you know what, I find it has a better texture and it goes better because sea salt's very fine, whereas kosher salt tends to be a little more coarse, and those jagged edges can tend to cut gluten strands. So I'll throw the salt in, and I'm gonna mix it by hand. So I'm gonna mix it for about a minute until it all comes together until I have a ball. It's gonna look ugly, it's gonna look sticky, it's gonna look like cookie dough that you kind of like put out and you're like, but we're gonna just get these mixed ingredients and we're gonna let it sit. We're gonna cover it with a little bit of plastic wrap. This is not in the recipe, this is me telling you, this is one of those tricks how to make great pizza. We're gonna let this auto-lease for 30 minutes. So we're gonna mix it. So auto-leasing is basically a step where we're introducing flour to water, and we've got the molecules in flour, we've got the gluten and the gliadin, that when they combine, they form the gluten strands, which gives you all that structure.
Yes.
And you know more about that than I do. I just know they go together and it forms gluten.
Yes. So the water basically starts that reaction.
Starts the reaction.
Yes.
So we're allowing the auto-lease, and I think you said it better when you said earlier, it allows the auto-lease process, we're mixing it, and then we're gonna let it rest. So you're allowing the flour, the water, and everything to kind of hydrate and just relax. Now, if you were to do the exact same recipe that I have for you that's online, where you just mix it for 15 minutes, totally fine. However, this step of auto-leasing in any bread making you do is crucial, and I think most bakers would agree. Auto-lease just allows it to relax. It allows it to get a little more structure, a little more.
Absolutely. So you're starting the structural process, right? So you're starting the development of the gluten, which actually gives you, like, if you were to look at it under a microscope, you would actually see this really brilliant, like, lattice work.
Lattice.
Which is going to give you, like, when you bite into, like, a great sourdough or that pizza crust, you get a crunch and a chew, and it has that really good pull to it, and that's what we're looking for. And this, the auto-lease process starts that. So you start to develop the gluten, and then you let it rest, right? And then you're gonna beat it up again. You know, you knead it again, and that helps more development. And then you let it rest. So the resting part is very important.
Scratch my nose for me?
Here, yeah.
Can you reach over? Scratch my nose. It's a bad time to have an itch on your nose.
Should I get a spoon?
Please. All right, so you can see this mess. You're like, what in the world is this? This is what it looks like. So we're introducing the water. Everything's hydrating.
Yes.
It's a little bit sticky, which is how you want it to be. So at this point, I want to talk about hydration of dough. So typical New York style pizza, which I think a lot of pizza places I think go after. It's the big slices, it's the thin crust, it's the stuff you can fold, you can bend, it's real chewy, you can put lots of toppings on it. It's typically about 60 to 65% hydration rate. Now this dough that you're doing, if you follow the directions exactly, is closer to a 70%. The reason being is when we start working with a dough, we're gonna put a little flour on the table. You're gonna put a flour on top, keep everything from sticking. That's going to absorb the flour, and so if I have a lower hydration rate, it can tend to toughen up the dough, or it can just tend to absorb it and make it really dry. And so I don't want that to happen. I want you to have those, I don't know if you can see this. These are giant air pockets and air bubbles that come from when the steam hits the dough and everything is all working and the yeast is all happening. It forces those big air pockets, which I think Neapolitan pizza is known for. So you can see this is very sticky. So at this point, I'm going to take a towel.
So all the flour, all the water, all the oil, and the yeast, the salt, all the ingredients
all together.
Yep,
all together. Now, if you were one of our folks who, during the great pandemic of 2020, decided to make sourdough bread, you made homemade starter because you couldn't find bread anywhere, you can absolutely use a starter. Now, I made a poulish, and because I was excited, I forgot to add it to my dough, which is totally fine because I've got other dough that's already made with a poulish. So what is a poulish? Well, it's a pre-ferment. So if you were to take your sourdough and add a little bit of that sourdough to the pizza, you could absolutely do that. However, I wouldn't recommend just going straight like sourdough in the pizza to use it for rise. And the reason being is because this commercial yeast is a strand of yeast that has been like developed, for a long time, that does best when rising bread. Like it's meant to rise bread. So it's tailored to doing that. So I would use your sourdough if you have some to help kind of give some flavor to it. That's all a poulish is. So poulish, there's poulish biga, there's pre-ferments, I don't know if you can see that. You see all those bubbles in there? This is about 18 hours of poulish. I recommend a poulish. The recipe's online. We'll pop it up on the screen for you. It's equal parts flour and water. Doesn't matter what kind of flour, doesn't matter what kind of water, as long as it's a gluten-style flour. Flour and water and a little bit of the dry active yeast. Mix it together. Let it sit in a just cool, warm, or just room temperature place on your counter for at least 14 to 16 hours. By the next day, after that 14 to 16 hours, the smell is good. It's not quite sour, but this gets added to your dough. Like I would add it in that process and mix it all up. And during that, like you're gonna get the flavor of that 14 hours. That's why we call it a pre-ferment. So it's really, really good. Now, this pizza dough, because I also do it at home, this is something I tested for myself. Look at my hands. I'm gonna turn this with now we sell bench scrapers, which is what I'm gonna use. This is crucial to making pizza, you'll find later. Crucial to making pizza is a bench scraper. I've got a plastic one that's kind of will fold, and I've got the thick one that we're gonna show you how to cut with. But I'm just gonna give us a turn. So you can see now that I've got it, like it's starting to become a little more cohesive. So I'm gonna let this rest. I'm gonna throw a little towel on it. I'm gonna let it rest. And I'll show you what this looks like right now. This is what this one looks like. So after about 30 minutes, this is closer to an hour, but look at what this looks like. So you can see you see how creamy that looks? So that's that same dough that I've just taken and allowed to sit. So I didn't mix it anymore. I gave it a couple of turns. And when I'm doing this at my house...
And when you say turns, tell us what you mean by turn.
I'm going to show you how to do a turn right now.
Okay.
So when I do this at my house, I'll do what's called, I usually make pizza dough in the morning. I let it kind of sit and I keep turning it all day. And that's not really a pizza technique. That's more like a sourdough, like bread, like serious bread making technique where you kind of would turn it, which is where I do this. I just take it and I would just kind of flip it. Now you probably want to use 2 hands, but you just kind of keep flipping it in the bowl. I'm just kind of folding it in on itself a little bit.
So the turning process, it develops more of that gluten, but also, which is that lattice structure.
And again,
so you get that texture.
Yep,
yes.
And you don't have to do this. Again, this is me showing you my techniques that I do like to do at home. If you do it the same way, again, if you just mix the dough, knead it, let it sit out, make the pizza, it's still good. But these are those little tips. Now I'm gonna because I've let this sit out longer, I'm gonna spray it with a little bit of water and I'm gonna cover it back up and just let it sit. And again, typically when I say sit at room temperature, I feel like every bread recipe lies to you because they're like, let it sit in a warm place. Like you make brioche and they're like, let it sit in a warm place or room temperature place for an hour, and it's like doubled in volume. It's like, it takes like 6 hours most of the time.
Well, that's because your house is at 60
right.
degrees.
So thank you. That's exactly what I was gonna say. I was like, I'm running out of room over here. Everybody's, yes.
Quick question. So we have a question. If your dough looks dry,
yes.
What should we let it sit for a little bit longer, or would you recommend adding a little bit of moisture to it or working it?
You can let it sit a little bit longer. You can add a little bit of water. Do it in the form of like, if you can do it in a squirt bottle or just take your hands and just kind of sprinkle it over the top and just kind of work it in. I would do that. There's so many things. This is what I was going to say. Hang with it. Don't get frustrated the first time you do it because so many environments, everybody's environment is different. This environment that we're in right now in our test kitchens is very humid. So it's very humid, it's kind of hot. So like for us, I can add a little less water because of that. Now your house may be really cold or maybe less humid because you've got a great ventilation system or whatever it may be. So sometimes it can tend to get a little drier and you need a little more water. Plus, wintertime, springtime, summertime, there's so many different things that affect the hydration level of it. So I would say give it a second to kind of see what it does, and then you can just either take your hands, put them under some cold running water, and just kind of do what I just did to kind of fold the dough. So you're kind of incorporating a little bit of water without just pouring water on top because it'll make a sticky kind of doughy mess.
So also quickly, we keep saying the word hydration.
Hydration, yes.
So let's talk really briefly about that just to clarify for our folks. So the hydration is how much water is actually in the dough, right?
Right.
And then...
Which contributes to the bubble formation and how it lifts in the oven.
Okay, and then, so if you have too low of moisture, you would have
tough dough.
Okay, or hard, right? And then if you had too much, it would be like sticky.
It could be sticky, but what I tend to like, I like breads that are, like when I do my flatbread, sometimes I'll do a little higher hydration, like in the 80%, which almost feels like when you're taking it out, it's like kind of pouring like liquid, you're trying to pull it all together.
Okay.
And I just add a little more flour to it because you get those really intense like bubbles all over the place. That's kind of hydration. So simple hydration mathematics would be, if you're trying to figure out the hydration rate of your dough, I just take whatever ounces of water or liquid I have and divide it by the ounces of flour you have, and then you can multiply by 100 or just move the decimal and you'll see it's 70%, 80%, whatever it is. That's how you figure out the hydration rate. But typically, you'll kind of see what works best for you as you do it. Like as I do this dough, I like it a little more hydrated. Again, if we're using a bread flour, some bread flours, if they've been sitting longer, can soak up a little more water. So there's all these variables when it comes to bread making. So which is why, don't give up when you first start. So I'm also going to make a cinnamon sugar pizza fritti. So very, very similar recipe. I'm going to use the same thing. Now you can use the exact same thing. You use all-purpose or bread flour, same exact proportion. So I'm using the same amount proportion of oil, but instead of olive oil, I'm going to use a grapeseed oil, and the recipe will flash up here in a second. Same amount of yeast, same amount of flour. Instead of adding just the normal salt, I'm going to take down the salt, and I'm going to add sugar. And then that's it. Those are the ingredients. That's the same thing. And instead of water, you're going to add milk, which is going to enrich it, which is going to give it also a little bit of sweetness from the lactose. And then you're also going to have the, I got Mega Mama bowl now. Get ready. And that way you'll get this more kind of a, because we're going to fry it, and we're going to roll it in cinnamon sugar, so it's more like a donut. Now, I made the exact same dough for the pizza as the pizza fritti before, and it's fantastic. So if you want to just do the pizza fritti, or if you want to take your leftover dough, we were talking about leftover dough, what to do with it, cut it into little squares, or cut it whatever, however you want to do it, cut it into triangles, throw it in some oil, fry it. It'll get big and puffy and beautiful. It'll look something like this, and it's delicious if you roll that bad boy in cinnamon sugar, and it's not, I mean, that's coffee, pizza, and your leftover pizza fritti in the morning. All right, this one is the same exact thing. So I'm gonna start the same exact way. Milk's gonna go in. It's real fast. It's the, now if you can get your milk to room temperature, great. If you can't, it'll just get to auto lease a little bit longer. The sugar, the flour, and then the salt again on top. So this will go, you'll notice the fermentation on this will go a little bit faster. The reason being is we're adding sugar. Now the yeast will eat the carbohydrates in the flour. That's how we get the other fermentation. But the sugar in there will help speed up what they do. And so you'll notice a lot of gas bubbles very quickly. And that's the reason why. I'm going to throw this away real fast. So you'll notice that a little bit quicker.
We have a great question.
Yes.
I want, so slow down just a little bit.
Okay.
So
slowing down.
Same mixing process that we did with
Exact same mixing process.
Except the ingredients have changed a little bit.
Yep.
And we have some great questions. So would it make a difference if I used lactose-free milk or not? Like, is that going to make a difference?
I mean, you should be fine. It's the, it'll be a little less sweet, but it shouldn't make a big difference.
Okay.
I would say if you can use full fat where you can, because you'll definitely notice it in the flavor of the dough. Now, if you only have 2% milk, it's probably fine. The great thing about this is, I think I've tested this pizza recipe, I don't know how many times, and every time you do it, you can add a little bit more water, a little less water, whatever it is, depending on the air outside or what's going on in your house. But you'll notice that the flavor, when you kind of follow these steps and you do it, the flavor is going to be great no matter what you do. And you can fry the same pizza dough in the same oil and it's totally fine.
Oh, brilliant. So if I didn't, okay, so I could either double my recipe of dough, or I could use my excess dough to make the fritti. Brilliant.
You just have, so the neutral oil in this dough is a little less flavorful than the olive oil, but if you were to try both side by side, you'd be like, oh, I like you'll get that little milk flavor in the one donut, but it's fried dough with cinnamon sugar, so it's not going to suck.
So basically you're making a donut.
Basically, this is an Italian-style donut in the
how do you
same
say
way.
it?
Bomboloni, bombolini,
Yes,
bomboloni.
I'm done.
Only
I
I
can
didn't cut it
leave
into
now.
circles. Normally bomboloni, you're supposed to cut into little circles. All right, instead of getting my hands all dirty and mix again, you understand the process. This gets covered with a towel, same kind of thing. And then once we're done with the auto lease, we will mix it again for about 10 minutes. And then we'll kind of let it rest, and then we'll start the whole process. So the 30 minutes is just to let the dough relax. Everybody good with that? Did I go fast? I'm sorry, I know I'm going really fast. I also want to show you a mess up. So this is what happens. This can happen. You never know.
So quickly though, my fritti,
yes,
my fritti, I can't say it as well as you can, the dough should look similar,
yes,
if not exactly the same as the other dough.
And I'll show you both. Yes, you'll see both side by side. You'll be able to see both of them, and I'll show you both are proof, both are ready to go, and they both look almost exactly the same. It's just the taste that you'll notice is different. So what happens when you make pizza dough, like I did last night in preparation for this class today to show you guys how great pizza is, and your dough doesn't rise. This has been sitting, this is what happens. This is just auto-leased flour and water and dead yeast. So every once in a while, you can get yeast in a packet where the other two packets, usually the yeast I buy is sold, they come in packs of 3. This one could be dead. You never know. It could say the expiration is 2022. You never know. Sometimes that's a part of what happens. Don't get discouraged. Just remake it and realize, okay, so this one didn't do as well because the yeast was dead. It has happened to me so many times. It's just it's kind of the luck of the draw, as it were. So we'll just say, hey, this was great practice. You can fold this in it, roll it out, maybe make crackers with it. You can make anything you want out of it. But don't try to make pizza because you'll just frustrate yourself. You're like, I didn't get any bubbles. It's flat as a, so you can make crackers out of it. Okay, so in order to top a pizza, now that we have our dough auto leasing, I'm going to show you how to actually, those of you that are making your bread flour, this is what this one looks like. Before we get into pizza toppings, I'm going to show you how to shape the dough into rounds, and then we're going to get into house-made Italian sausage. I'm going to show you how to make homemade Italian sausage because I know everybody gets busy, and we sell virtually everything you could ever want to buy at your local H-E-B. But if you get to the H-E-B and what happens if you're like, hey, it's been a long day, all this stuff, I'm running around, and there's no Italian sausage. You're like, wah, wah, guess no pizza. Well, hey, guess what? I'm going to show you a really simple way to make your own Italian sausage, and it's going to be made days in advance because the longer it sits, the more flavor it'll develop, and you'll just cook it off when you get home, and it's even better than, I'm not going to say it's better than the store-bought because our H-E-B sausage is really good. They do really, really good work, but it's very comparable, and I think it works well as a replacement. I'll just say that. Okay, so before we shape, so this is the bread flour. So you see what I did? So this yeast is very, very active. It's working, it's alive. You can see it's nice and sticky. It's ready to go. So I'm going to take my little bench scraper, and I'm going to kind of fold it. See how I'm knocking all that air out? You see all that beautiful air that's being knocked out, how creamy the dough is? It seems weird to say dough looks creamy, but if you can see.
No, that makes sense to me.
Get my head out of the way.
You took this dough out. So let's say I made my dough the day ahead. I kept it in the refrigerator.
Yep.
I go to take it out, and my dough is not bubbly. My dough is just sitting at the bottom of my bowl. Does that mean my yeast was probably dead?
Not necessarily, because when you do, and I love to do cold fermentation, which I didn't really get into. Cold fermentation I love when you make the dough and immediately cover it or put it in one of the, I love these little dough things. I have a lot of these. Obviously, this is commercial kitchen. We don't normally carry stuff like this at H-E-B, but in a thing like this, you seal it up, you throw it in the fridge, let it sit overnight for at least 24 hours. Now, we've done pizza, and I'll just say this, we have tested the limits of where double O flour can go. I'm assuming that the bread flour, which has more protein, will do almost the same exact thing, even in all-purpose. We've let it go 7 days, mostly because we made pizza dough on a Monday. We're going to use it on Friday. We want to give it plenty of a long fermentation. Now, we cooked it on that Monday. It didn't rise very much because the yeast had pretty much done what it did, but the flavor of the fermentation of the dough was killer. So I recommend cold fermentation almost every time when you do it, which means don't let it sit out. Just throw it in the fridge, make it at night, throw it in the fridge overnight, and the next day let it sit out on the counter 3 to 4 hours, let it come to room temp, roll it out and do the same thing. So to roll this out, I got a little flour here. So again, the reason for the hydration, we want to make sure we're going to add a little flour to the base of this. The dough's a little bit sticky, but I think you'll see as I start working with it, it'll kind of loosen up. So I'm going to form it and shape it into our, now typically I would use a digital scale for this, but I'm not going to use a digital scale because it's Friday night family pizza night. If one's 12 ounces, if one's 40 ounces, somebody will just get a really big pizza. All right, so I'm going to give it a little flip over here. Look at how beautiful that is. So soft. Just needs a little soft. Tell me about your day. Hard Friday? Busy day at the office? It feels so good when you start making dough like this, and it's just, and this is the same exact way I showed you how to do it. So yeah, so in answer to your question, Charlotte, you let it sit for a little while because it may just be the yeast is just kind of, it's seized up and needs some time to relax.
Okay.
If after like a few hours at room temperature, nothing is happening, then the yeast is probably dead.
Okay.
That's okay. All right, so I'm gonna just cut my dough. So why would I not stretch and pull my dough?
I know the answer to this.
Don't do it. Answer.
I know the answer because we spent all of that time and energy making that beautiful lattice structure. And when you pull the dough like that, what you're doing is you're breaking down that lattice or the like scaffolding that makes your dough so beautiful.
Exactly.
So you want to do.
So you don't want to do that. You always want to cut
Yes.
dough when you're going to use it. Don't ever rip it because ripping the dough it'll do just that. It'll
I
just
feel
create
so
those
smart right now.
Terrible. No, you're exactly right on. So now I'm going to show you some things. This may take a little bit of time for you to kind of hook onto. I'm just going to do just a very light dusting, just to kind of keep everything from completely sticking, but I want it a little bit dry. So I'm going to take the dough. Now there's 2 ways of doing it. So I learned one way. Conies.
Oh, fix your mic. There you go.
Fix my mic. It fell inward.
It happens.
You can take it, roll it in your hands like this, and just kind of keep rolling in a ball. It's so weird because I use the same amount of water that you guys did. You see how sticky mine is? Because I'm in a very humid environment. So I'll just hit a little more flour on mine. Again, just kind of roll it into it. So I'm kind of folding it. You can see I'm kind of folding it in on itself. I want to make this look good for you guys. So I'm going to get a little more flour on this bad boy so it doesn't stick to me too bad. And just kind of rolling it in on itself. So you're kind of rolling and tucking to kind of make a ball. And it's really, really sticky. See what it does? The humidity, I'm telling you. Let me give this a little more flour.
So if you were making that, so if you were cooking along with us at home,
yes.
This dough this is dough that's been after like what, 2 hours, 3 hours?
Yeah.
How long have we been letting this
Yeah,
dough?
probably a little longer than that.
Okay.
It's been sitting out. So this is ready to pretty much ready to go. So you can roll it like that. And obviously it's a little bit sticky. I like to do it this way. Again, if you end up doing a ball like this, it's your first time. This is
perfect.
Totally okay. It's totally fine. Guess what? It's still going to taste delicious. I like to do, eventually you'll get to the point where you can kind of take the dough and slap it down a little bit, where you'll take it and you'll just kind of roll it. So if I was to slow this down, I'm doing a very slow rolling, and I'm taking my fingers and I'm tucking them under. I'm kind of slowly just sliding the dough, rolling, and then eventually you get to the point where it forms this beautiful little ball. It's still sticking a little bit, but when I flip it over, you have that little, so that guy, good to go.
I just
Yes.
want to make everyone feel better. When I first started making pizza, they looked like the United States of America. Like one looked like Nebraska, one looked like Oklahoma.
It takes a while, and this technique that I'm doing here, I was terrible at for the longest time. So just know, it just takes practice. The more you do it, the better you'll get.
I mean, I can attest to that.
You can. Made it daily. I did it every single day, and every day I was like, nope, not good, nope, not good.
We have a question in the chat.
Yes.
Jameson wants to know, how would Christopher Walken roll his dough?
Here's the deal. Largely, to roll the dough, you'd need straight double O flour first, number one. Number two, just be gentle, really gentle with my mic doesn't want to stay. It's my apron, is what it is. So it wouldn't stay intact, really. So here's the deal. Largely, just be gentle and go easy with it, and it'll be fine, right? And if it looks like flour dough, who cares, right? Kind of, sort of. That was rusty. I had to dust that one off. All right, so those are so that was one dough. You saw I've got 5 little pizzas here. So I could take 3 for me to make pizza with, and I could take 2 to make some of my fried dough with. I'm going to put them all back in here because I already have my pizza ready to go, and I can reform this later. All right, so in order to form your pizza, am I going too fast? Is it all making sense, Charlotte? Is it all right?
You're doing okay.
We
we do want to know why we put all that dough back in that bowl.
Oh, because I have copious amounts of dough around me.
Okay, so you were just doing that for
I
demo
was just doing it for show. Right now, when I rolled those out, you would cover that up with a little bit of plastic wrap. I'm sorry. I was going to show you this over here. So you can see how this is what overproofed pizza looks like, which is okay. I'm still going to use this. We're going to make pizza out of this, and I'm going to show you how. Let go. I've covered it with plastic wrap. You see how big it's gotten? But I still have some great fermentation.
Can you hold one of those dough balls up?
Yes.
Show us.
So
Ooh,
overproof dough. So you see I've still got all my little fermentation bubbles there. It's starting to get a little bit dry, but don't worry, it's going to be all right. So I'm going to take my plastic scraper here and see how I've got those little tails that are kind of doing it. It's all right. I'm just going to kind of form it back on itself a little bit. Form it back. This is because our kitchen is so hydrated, and I mean humid, it's nice and sticky, but just like that, just kind of form it up. So see, even though it's overproofed, I'm still going to use it. We're still going to eat it. It's going to be delicious. So see, just going to kind of form it back over, kind of re-roll this.
So
and even if it's overproofed.
So you said overproofed, so define that. Tell me what overproofed
So that means the yeast has pretty much done everything it can do, and it's just kind of like, it's just gassed out. So it's like, I can't rise the dough anymore.
So it's consumed all the carbs.
Consumed everything it can do, and it is what it is at that point. And so, which is totally fine, because you can still make great stuff with it. Honestly, once you get it to an overproof state, it's actually best to fry with that. So if you started making your pizzas and you're setting them at room temperature, and this is what I love about kind of a family pizza night, because this is what I imagine. Right now, you're going to, you're letting your dough auto-lease. You should have run over to your liquor cabinet or to your refrigerator and grabbed a glass of wine, bottle of wine, whatever you're drinking, beer, whatever it is, and you're having your cocktail, you're hanging out with your kids, your family, your significant other, whatever, or just solo, either way. But you're just hanging out while you're doing this, and then you can, once you started making pizza, if you're doing the same thing, if you're chatting, you're moving around, all of a sudden you're like, oh, these are getting way proofed or way overproofed, just roll it out a little with a rolling pin, which I'll show you in a second. Cut them into squares, circles, whatever you want, and just throw them in some oil and fry them up. Done.
For sure. Or throw it on the grill, make some
like, yes,
sort of like a flatbread or like a naan.
That's what I was going to show you how to do.
You know, I always make extra dough. I have a 3-year-old, so I always make a little bit of extra and like give it to her to play with.
Yes, that is a fantastic idea.
And then, you know, it gets stuck all over her hands. It gets super disgusting, and she eats half of it, but, you know, it keeps her entertained.
It does, and it is fun. I know my daughter loves to play with the dough too. She will like to have. She likes to do her own dough. She likes to have it and go, no, I want to do my own. I'm like, you got it. So I'm going to throw it in. So this is what I keep when I do pizza at night, or on Friday nights, or at night, or whenever you want to do it. I keep my semolina flour, which we carry. So it's the Durham semolina. It's ground, and that's at a good pizza place. You'll always have a little film on the bottom of your pizza, those little granules. That's what that is. So that's the semolina, and that's what's going to keep it from sticking. So I got a hot grill. I already showed you. This is not part of the recipe, but I just want to show you that you can absolutely do this. This is fantastic for barbecues. If you decide, you know what, I don't feel like getting out all the pizza trimmings and doing all that stuff. Wait do you see what Charlotte did for me? You can just throw the dough on the grill. I do that very, very often. All right, Rob, we're going to move to the grill. You ready for this? Let me spray my grill. Run over to the grill cam. Grill cam. You see it up top? All right, wait for it. Here we go. I'm just doing the flame like this for effect because I want you to think that it's really dangerous. And I'm a professional most of the time. All right, here we go. So pizza's going to go right on the grill. Now, you may be saying to yourself, won't it drip down the grill? Won't it get stuck? Won't it be like a total mess?
Ooh, look at that.
Maybe, but because we did so much to develop the gluten and we let it auto-lease and we did all these things, you should be able to throw it right on the grill. Now, I would tell you, go at a lower temp, because if you go at a really high temp, if you're one of those people, I'm going to switch gears real fast. Low temp for grilling pizza, high temp for cooking pizza. Now, we have a pizza oven in our test kitchens here. If you have a pizza oven at your house, again, you could just reach out. We could go. I'll make the pizza dough. We'll do a big pizza in your fancy pizza oven. But if you don't, and you're going to use what I'm going to show you here, I've got some tricks too, because if you don't have a 1,000-degree pizza oven, which will burn your pizza very quickly, you can always just use a regular oven. Not a deck oven, not just a regular oven, or you can throw it on the grill just like I did. So for preheating our oven, put a sheet pan a third way to the top.
Yes.
And crank your broiler up all the way. So flip a sheet pan over. We're going to make a pizza stone because we don't sell pizza stones, and if you don't have a pizza stone, you don't need to go get a pizza stone. We'll improvise, and this is how I do it a lot of times as well. Flip a sheet pan over, turn on the broiler high. I would recommend using a less dirty cookie sheet because
you
if
mean
you
a
got
clean
one that
one.
has oil
You would
clean,
use a clean one. Got it.
Because whatever's on there will be burning off, and so if you do a lot of cooking where there's a lot of oily things in the bottom of your pan, just know the cleaner the better for that. Let it go, 550, and I do this when I start making my dough. I'll preheat my pan, so it gets screaming hot. And then as soon as that's hot, about an hour, I'll turn it on bake at the highest it'll go. If it's only 500 degrees, it's totally fine because we preheated the pan to give us that really hot surface. Now, if you're nervous about how we're going to do the pizza itself, like how am I going to put that on there, how am I going to do it, I don't know how to form it, shape it, I'm going to show you. I got another cheat for you. All right, we're going to go over here to the grill cam real fast. I'm moving. So
what temp is that grill, like medium high?
This grill is about medium low, I would say.
Okay, medium low.
So I'm going to show you this. So see, it's not sticking. What?
And look at those tan lines, Chef.
I broke it.
So if you
That's
had
all.
a pizza stone, so some people have pizza stones,
Yep.
would you start to preheat it?
Absolutely. Same way. Pizza
Got it.
stone right into the broiler, really high heat, get it nice and hot. Don't go like right to the surface of it. Give it a little, like I would say upper third of your oven. And that way, just let it get screaming hot and then turn on the oven. Now, reminder to yourself, because I've done this many times. I've got my broiler preheating. I'm doing that whole thing, and all of a sudden I go to stick the pizza in without turning it on to bake. And I'm like, let me smell fire. Smell fire? And it's basically charred the entire top of my pizza and it's smoking.
That's called rustic.
Turn your oven back to bake before you throw your pizza under the oven. Give it some time. All right, we're going to make some Italian sausage. I promise you Italian sausage. I've got some right here. I'm going to make some. So the Italian sausage ingredients are very simple. It's a pound of pork. Now, if you don't eat pork, you want to go turkey, you want to go ground beef, you want to go bison, you want to go Wagyu. It's really the same proportion. For every pound of meat you're going to do, you're going to add a teaspoon of salt, teaspoon of pepper, and you're going to have, in this Italian sausage, I've got some ground fennel, some garlic powder, onion powder, paprika. I have, of course, a little red chili flake. I've got some Mediterranean oregano. We talked earlier about Mexican and Mediterranean oregano. What's the big difference between them? The biggest difference is I tend to find that Mediterranean oregano is a little more herbaceous. One of my favorite oreganos is Sicilian, which comes in those branches. They dry it out. It's really hard to find. Usually you can find it on the internet. And you just kind of sprinkle it over the top of pizza, and it gives it a really herbaceous like flavor.
Yeah.
So Mexican oregano to me has a little hotter flavor to it. So it's more like I like it better for chilies or whatever. This is completely my palate, but I think that Mediterranean tends to be a little more herbaceous, and Mexican Oregano tends to go more like kind of hot herb. If that makes sense. It may not make sense. And that's
I
okay
get it.
too.
I get it. Could I
spices?
use Mexican oregano if that's what I have in my fridge or pantry?
Or you could omit it completely. Now, the other thing I love about this Italian sausage is the one ingredient that's weird, what I would consider weird, is allspice. Now, allspice, the reason why we're using allspice is because it's a very scant, like quarter or eighth of a teaspoon of the allspice, and I feel like it just gives it more of a Mediterranean style flair to it. It just gives it, like, if it's not in there, you'd be like, it's good, but then if you have it in there, it just gives you that extra layer of flavor. All right, I'm gonna get in here. This is all the spices, red wine vinegar. Why the red wine vinegar? Because we want it to have a little bit of that kind of, you said earlier, Charlotte, like a fermented kind of flavor?
Yeah, so like that, so a cured meat, a cured sausage, so the vinegar.
And I will tell you, toasting your spices is the best way to do this. Now, if you have whole allspice and whole fennel, which is a lot of times the only way you can find it, toast it in a pan, dry pan, just a few minutes, it'll get really, really fragrant, and you'll know exactly when it's done. And then grind it up in your blender, and then after you're done with your blender, so it doesn't stink like that forever, every time you make something, it stinks like allspice, throw a little bit of vinegar, or you can throw a little bit of bleach in there, rinse it out with soap and water, and then I'll help get some of that
Do you remember when
out.
somebody used our coffee grinder for herbs?
Yeah, it had like mace and stuff in it, and it was like,
oh yeah, it was.
Every time you got a cup of coffee, you're like, all right, so the Italian sausage, I'm gonna wash my hands.
Okay.
We're gonna preheat I've already got some Italian sausage now. My note on the Italian sausage is, I told you earlier, you can let it sit in your fridge and make this ahead of time, which I absolutely 110% recommend you do. Can you cook it straight away? Like if you're doing this live with me right now, could you cook it straight away? You can, absolutely.
Okay.
But giving it that time to bloom, I haven't forgot, did you forget about my grilled flatbread?
No, I'm watching it. Okay, so I think this is great, and you've talked about this a lot throughout this class and through some other classes, is that you're giving things time, right?
Yes.
And as you give them time, you develop more flavor, right?
You
so
do.
like the same principle behind like why spaghetti sauce and chili are always better the next day?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely, because you're allowing everything to bloom. So obviously we've got a lot of dried spices. So dried spices, once they kind of hit the fat of the meat, once they kind of get, they get awoken with the moisture, like they'll start to really give it that really good flavor. All right, so I think we're almost ready to make a pizza. I've got my oil heating because I'm going to show you how to make the pizza fritti as soon as I get 2 pizzas in the oven. I promised 2 pizzas. So I have 4 pizzas total. I'm going to use my bloomed out dough. I'm going to start my Italian sausage, even though I've already got some going. And I'm going to show you guys. I'm going to move this out of the way because I'm going to bring up my...
So could I put raw sausage directly on my pizza?
No.
Great.
Unless you're going to cook the ever-loving heck out of it and it's burned, I would always cook your sausage first before you put it on there. And that pretty much goes with everything, except for like your cured meats, obviously, those are fine. But I would always, like chicken, if you want to make a barbecue pizza, we sell that great shredded rotisserie chicken in our delis. Just take it, shred it up, you can mix it with barbecue sauce, throw it on the pizza, but don't throw raw chicken on there. Now, the only caveat to all that is an egg. I absolutely will put a raw egg on a pizza and throw it in there because obviously an egg doesn't need as long to cook if you like a runny egg and your egg's pasteurized, which I mean,
breakfast pizza is a thing.
So check this out. All right, here we go. Here's the spread that Charlotte made for me earlier. It's got some of our homemade Italian sausage on there. It's got the basil. It's got the pepper. I don't know if you can see it. Oh, here's our sky cam. Some Castelvetrano olives. If you haven't had these yet, I love Castelvetrano olives. Sicilian olives. We sell them if you've got even if you don't have a cooking connection near you or you don't have a store with a cooking connection near you. These are usually found in most where all the other olives are. The Rustico, Castelvetrano green olives. They're delicious. What is unique about a Castelvetrano olive, Charlotte, to you?
Well, honestly, first of all, their color is beautiful, but
really
they're buttery. They're buttery and velvety,
and they're not super salty. They're not that like briny,
No,
salty.
I'm a big fan.
I'm a big fan. All right, let me get the sausage going. I think our flatbread is done. And yes, the grill is really on. I just don't have a lot of feeling in my fingers anymore. This is what that looks like. So if we tear this open, look at that.
Can you send that on down to me, please?
Come on, look at that. See the little hole structure? See our little fermentation bubbles? Boom! That's a little flatbread. Okay, so a couple different ways to do your pizza. So shredded mozzarella, fresh mozzarella, buffalo mozzarella, whatever kind of mozzarella you want to do is great. My salsa alla pizza recipe is going to be up on the board. You'll see it right here. Is it right here?
So salsa alla pizza. So pizza sauce.
Pizza sauce.
Okay.
Pizza sauce. But this is kind of, again, we're going toward the Napolitana style. So we're going to use, now you don't have to use San Marzano tomatoes. Quick little thing. There's also, and Charlotte will tell you, she'll fact check this. You can use the San Marzano tomatoes, which I think they are protected by an origin. There are a lot of them, the ones we carry especially. See how it says on the can? You can see that. It says certified. So certified San Marzano. Now, if you can't find San Marzano tomatoes, you can use any kind of tomato you want to. I personally am going to use these today, which is the organic crushed tomatoes with basil. I love the basil in there. So that's what I made. And all I did, salt, oregano, olive oil, tomatoes. That's it. Typically, for a Neapolitan style salsa alla pizza or pizza sauce, it's literally salt, Neapolitan, or the salt, it's the San Marzano tomatoes, and a little bit of olive oil, and that's it. So they want the sweetness of all that. All right, turn this down a little bit, get my spatula, break all this up. This sausage smells delicious, by the way. So this has had about 4 hours to bloom. I would have made this overnight, but this is just, I made it earlier today. It's had some time to kind of mature, I would say. And all you want to do is just get a little bit of crisp on that. Just want to make sure it's cooked through, especially if you're serving kids, make sure it's cooked through.
One of our viewers is
Yes.
doing it with the Beyond Hot Italian sausage.
That works.
I thought that was pretty cool.
Totally works, especially for Lent, right? You want to go meat-free? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Way to go.
Okay, so since we're talking pizza toppings, how do you feel about pineapple on pizza?
I don't know. How do you feel about pineapple on pizza?
For me, I thought really hard. Like, people are like, oh my God, pineapple on pizza, it's so bad. I actually don't think it's so bad.
No?
I think it's the combination of the pineapple with the Canadian bacon that's so weird for me.
Okay.
And it reminds me of like holiday ham. So like, the pineapple is good, I think.
Yeah.
That sweet and salty thing,
like
it
that.
works. It's the Canadian bacon or the ham that I'm not wild about.
If you guys can see this, I neglect this on the stove. It's starting to burn. If you ever start to do this, this is just a cook's technique with a little bottle of water laying next to me. If your food or whatever ground beef starts to burn, just throw a little water in there. It'll kind of cool the pan down, kind of reset everything, and it'll add a little extra flavor. Kind of
Okay, so your
decluttering
favorite
this.
cheeses?
Favorite cheeses? I just do straight mozzarella. But I have a cheat when I do my mozzarella. This is going to kill me to throw this out. Should I throw this out?
No, that's for me.
Okay, all right, I'm putting it over
Okay,
here.
sorry, I didn't mean to scream everybody. I got excited about it.
I go pretty plain. Lately, my daughter has been loving tomato pie, which is straight tomato sauce on the pizza into the oven. Nothing else, no cheese. So that's a great way to do it too. I'm becoming more of a fan of the just straight tomato pie.
Yeah.
But I also love like a lot of inclusions. Like hot, I would say my wife tends to go toward hot. We do a little jalapeno, mushrooms, sauteed mushrooms, garlic.
Love it.
You run the gamut. I love speck. I would have put speck all over my pizza because I love speck. If you're not familiar with speck, close your eyes and imagine prosciutto, which I'm sure you've had or never had or heard of, which is that beautifully marbled ham that has those beautiful specks of well, it's this right here. I could just use this. Hi. Which has those little, beautifully thin. So speck is a lightly smoked version of the prosciutto, basically. So it's like it's the same kind of, but it's so good.
So it's like
really, really good.
Prosciutto-y,
Yeah.
bacony prosciutto.
So here's my sticky dough, because again, we're in a sticky environment.
And you're dipping
I'm
it
dipping
into...
it right in the semolina flour. Again, that's to keep it from sticking.
Okay.
But see, when I put it on here, it's not perfect, right?
No.
Not really. But I'm going to start from the inside and work your way out. Again, we're making the crust, so start from the in and work your way out. Pick it up. I don't recommend throwing it, because then you tear it, you're doing whatever. Just, you're driving the bus. Steering wheel, driving the bus. Driving the bus. Bus driver said, drive the... What's the song? What's the kid's song? Why am I blanking
The
right
Wheels
now?
on the Bus?
Wheels on the Bus. I was so far off that, it wasn't even funny. All right, so I'm cooking our pizzas on a pizza pan. Reason being, if you don't have one of our pizza peels, which are right back here, and you don't want to do this, I don't recommend doing this for first-time pizza maker, because I'm going to build the pizza on this, and there's a really high probability that it could get stuck. And then when you're going in there, if you've ever done this, you're like, it's time to bake the pizza. And you go in and you go, wah, and one piece sticks, and it's like, or the calzone. And now
We're
you've got a
having
calzone, or it all
calzone.
falls into the oven. So I'm not going to use a pizza peel. Now, when we work outside and we do the pizza oven, I will absolutely use a pizza peel. But for home pizza making, yes, we are creating another layer that's going to get in between this. However, this is how you kind of start forming the dough in a circle to kind of get it to where, okay, I know my pizza plate, I know how big I can get it, and then you work within that. there is still going to be a lot of contact with that hot pan that we've done on the bottom of this. Now you'll notice at first, because it's so hot, the pan may kind of form up a little bit. It's totally fine. That came out of this exact same thing. It's totally fine. Trust me. Here we go.
So I always
Pizza
think
sauce.
of this as like guardrails. Like, you know when you go bowling for the
Yeah.
first time with the kids
That's the only way I bowl, by the way, is
and they
guardrails.
put the
I won't do it.
bumper rails up? That's
Oh,
okay.
Always. Because even with the guardrails up, Charlotte, I can lose at bowling.
I
There's
mean-
sports, baseball, bowling. I'm okay. I'm not really
I
great
am
at tennis.
so good at
Any of those
bowling.
sports, I can't do.
So
like
good at bowling.
rugby, anything like I was great at, but like those kind of sports, I was like, forget it, not good. Okay, so instead of using shredded mozzarella, I could use a little bit of that. This is my hack. I love using this. This is the sheets of mozzarella. There was a pizzeria in Los Angeles that's called Mulberry Street Pizzeria, and I loved their pizzas, New York style, big. And this is what they did. Big sheets of provolone and mozzarella they put over the pizza. That way it's blanketed, it's good to go. All right, so here's my pizza margarita.
I worked at a grilled pizza place in Rhode Island
Yeah.
when I was in college, and they did equal parts mozzarella and provolone.
See, provolone cheese is great on a pizza. I'm just
Yeah.
keeping it simple tonight. We're doing a little mozzarella. If you want to do cheddar, if you want to do smoked provolone, smoked mozzarella, you can go crazy. That's what's great about this. It's all completely customizable. All right, that's good enough for my sausage.
Ooh, we have a
Guys,
question. So
yes.
Kyle says he's too lazy to make dough
Oh, are
or
you too
too
lazy to make dough?
hungry. He could be too
This is
hungry.
going in the oven. Here we go. There it
Oh,
goes.
pizza in the oven, and you made-
Set a
okay.
timer here. I've
What
got
would you-
I've got a hack for you. Are you ready for this? Hold
It's in the
for it.
fridge. The fridge. The fridge.
It's in the fridge. Sorry.
The fridge.
Wrong camera. Wrong camera. Here we go. Did you know, Kyle? Kyle, was it?
Kyle.
You can go to your local HEB freezer section and buy Italian pizza crust. So our Midtown Pizza, made in Italy. The owner I got to meet one time. He is a character. He is awesome, and he makes fantastic products. And our Midtown Pizza literally is, if you read the instructions on the back, the ingredients: wheat flour, water, salt, extra virgin olive oil, yeast. It is exactly the same as our dough. Super simple, super easy. So if you're in a rush, you can always grab this. But there is something fun to making pizza from scratch. All right, second pizza. What do you want on there, Charlotte?
My second pizza?
What do you want on the pizza?
Okay,
Actually,
I
let me use this one.
want dough. I want like a little tiny bit of sauce, like super light sauce.
Okay, super light sauce. Got
Super
it.
light
I
sauce.
got my template here.
Okay.
So see how that's all wrong, wonky, right? Watch, we're gonna make it work.
Look at
So I'm
that.
gonna just pat out. You see all those little? I don't know if you can see it right there, Rob or Jay. The little fermentation bubbles that are in there. So we're gonna get that. We're gonna take
So the
it.
byproduct
Look at how
from
stretchy this
fermentation. Oh look. So the yeast eats the sugars and creates gas.
Creates
and
gas.
that's where your bubbles come from.
So again, this is the reason why we have the pizza pan, is because it gives you an opportunity to kind of line it up so you got a circle. Now eventually you'll get better and you can put it on a pizza peel, and eventually if you want to do that, fantastic. You build your pizza. All right, so light sauce you said, what else?
Light sauce. I want mozzarella cheese. What other kind of cheese do you have?
You want the sliced mozzarella, Charlotte, or would you care for the shredded mozzarella?
I want shredded, please. And
Shredded
no,
mozzarella.
I want both. But do you have any other cheese?
Wow, this is awkward. No, I don't actually. I don't have any other cheese, sorry.
Well, I
Just
want my
one note.
money back. I want my money back. And then I want a little bit of pepperoni, and I
Okay.
want some jalapeno.
I have the thick cut pepperoni. How many you want? You want them like all around the outside?
Yep, I want a border of pepperoni.
Border of pepperoni, all right.
Welcome to my pizza order, y'all.
All right, now what do you want on there?
Jalapeno.
Jalapeno, all right, some jalapenos. I'm gonna have to rub my eyes after I,
And what is that in that white bowl right there? Is that parm?
yes, a little bit of our Parmigiano.
I'm gonna need some of that. And then can I get a drizzle of some olive oil,
Extra
please?
virgin olive oil.
And then I'm gonna have a side salad, no bell pepper.
Side salad, a glass of, what's the drink? du jour?
Chianti.
A glass of Chianti, all right. Into the oven it goes. All right, so I'm gonna show you this. I got my tongs. We're gonna be really safe about this. I'm gonna open up my oven. Now you see, what do you see? Big
It's bubbly.
bubbling, right? All right, so I'm gonna turn this around. You're gonna give it a swivel because, again, every oven has hot spots and not all even. So we're gonna give it a turn. You see my pizza pan kind of went like this? Doesn't matter, it's still gonna be perfect. All right, so move this all out of the way. Let's get to frying the dough.
We talked about this earlier, but somebody wants to know about white sauce.
Ooh, okay, so in full disclosure, who was it that's asking? I want to be able to use their name when I say it.
Omnia. Did I say your name right?
Who?
Omnia.
Omnia, I love it. So I don't typically like white sauce, but if you were gonna make a white sauce, my recommendation is to use almost equal parts ricotta to a parm or pecorino mixture. Because ricotta to a parm mixture and just whisk it up. If you want it a little bit creamy, you can add a little bit of heavy cream just to kind of get it a little bit wet. But that mixture spread on something, in that mixture you can add fresh herbs, salt, pepper, truffle oil, whatever you really want to kind of get it in that spot for extra flavor. But that's the one we used to do. A couple of different pizza places is always like, it's usually a mixture of like a Romano cheese and sounds like 2 words, ricotta, there it is. Ricotta cheese. All right, I got my oil heating up, I got my cinnamon sugar. All right, now we're gonna get out the milk. Look at this, this is gonna be ugly.
What is that?
Boom!
Oh, do you want a dough cutter? You may get you a...
So watch this, so see what I did?
Okay.
See this got overproofed, see how it's sticking? It's okay, because guess what? It's still gonna taste delicious. This dough's not gonna beat us. And by the way, you won't even notice this is happening once it's all, and that's the reality of what can happen. I'm like over 100 on my buckets tonight. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this dough. This is ready to fry. I'm gonna flip it over. I'm gonna take
That
my
looks
rolling
so
pin,
satisfying.
right?
That could be one of those videos that people watch of like cutting soap. What
I'm
is
gonna
that stuff
be
called?
so honest with you right now. The rolling and handling
ASMR,
dough
yes.
is so satisfying. There's something about it that is really, really sasatisfying. I'm gonna take my pizza cutter here. I'm just gonna take my little, where did I get this pizza cutter?
Ooh,
Great
that thing looks
question,
super
Charlotte.
sharp.
Yeah, right over your finger. Be careful. Monitor the kids if you're having them help you. I'm
So
gonna cut these little
listen,
squares.
my mom used the pizza cutter for like cutting sandwiches and cutting like all sorts of random
Yeah,
things,
you
like
could do
grilled
that.
cheese sandwich.
That's good old Willard did that?
Yes.
All right, here we go, into the oil. Fry it up. It
Now,
was nice and hot.
those of y'all viewing, you don't have to be so cavalier with the way you put the dough in.
Always want to
be a little more.
lay the dough away from you.
And
into
what
the
kind of oil is in that?
I'm using
guy?
grapeseed.
Okay.
I
And
like
why
a
are
higher
you using
temperature.
grapeseed?
But I don't know if you can see this. Can you guys see this? You see how fast they puff up? That oil is really, really hot, by the way. And there's my thing just kicking on because it's hot.
Why are we using grapeseed?
I like grapeseed oil, Charlotte, because it has a higher smoke point and it's a little more flavorless. So it's not going to be like frying.
It's like neutral.
Yeah, it's a little more neutral flavor, I guess you could say. Thank
Yeah.
you. That's the word I was looking for. Sounds like neutral.
I got you,
It's not
homie.
neutral.
Okay.
All right, so once they get fried up, you saw how fast that happens.
Woo-wee.
Again, this dough is very, very proof. Look at this. Come on.
Hey man, I kind of like that pot thing you got there.
This pot?
Yeah, I wasn't sure if I was gonna like that,
This
but I
was
like
also,
it.
That's also an HEB buy.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna throw a little more of our dough in there. I turned off my oil because it's obviously nice and hot.
Listen to this. Charity says she fills those guys with lemon curd and wants powdered sugar on top.
What?
Yep.
Charity.
She's invited to the next party.
She is. Does she also have a pizza oven that we could make?
Will
the
she
pizza
bring the lemon
and
curd
have-
though? Because that's on our next episode now.
Just work fast, flip the donuts. Obviously, you can see these get brown really, really quick. They start puffing up. All that, again, the hydration, the air, like all the water, it starts to create all that beautiful bubbly air. All right, so I am gonna give you a side salad because I did promise it's pizza night, right?
Yes.
So if you get your pizza night, you're gonna have a little side salad. I got a dressing. This is-
Charity says if we bring the burrata, she's got the lemon curd.
Oh, done. Problem is, Charity, the burrata won't make it to the house because I'll eat it. I'll eat burrata with a straw, straight up with a straw.
Well,
Straight
I'll
with
pay
a
to
straw.
see that.
I love burrata. All right, here we go. I left a bowl. How am I looking on time?
Whew.
Down to the wire, down to the wire.
Man, you're doing great.
All right, should we look at our pizzas?
This is dinner and a show.
I'm gonna move these
Yeah.
pizzas over here. All right, this pizza, pretty much done, right?
Woo!
I'm gonna give this guy a turn. Look at this bad boy. There's your pepperoni and mozzarella there, Charlotte.
I kind
Give it
of
a
like
turn.
wish we had Chianti in one of those like little bottles with the basket, and there was like
There it
a
is.
tablecloth,
Yeah.
checkered.
All right, so I just threw away the top, didn't I? It's gone. Nope, it's right here. Organic little gems. So these are new to HEB. They just hit the shelves about a month and a half ago, maybe a little more. I love this kind of lettuce. These little gems, these little leaves, these are also great for like stuffing. Make a little tuna tartare with it. That's a whole nother show. All right, I'm gonna throw these in. So my dressing. The typical classic Italian dressing, the recipe is right up on the screen right now. Right now. Is it on there? I can't tell. I'm just
there it is.
saying, there it is, right here. All this right in here. So all we have is our red wine vinegar, some garlic, some Mediterranean oregano, a little bit of Dijon mustard for the emulsifier, and I've got oil on top. Now I'm not using olive oil. I'm gonna use a neutral oil, again, grapeseed oil, because I want it to be nice and neutral. I want you to really be able to taste all the red wine vinegar, the garlic, and that classic Italian. And normally, so if I was at cooking school right now, if I was at culinary school, the instructor would be like, what did you do? This is a mess. You threw everything together, you did everything, and I would tell him, hey, don't bully me. Let me just show you what I'm gonna do here, boss. And then I would take my immersion blender and I would wow him and I'd get an A in the class, but that didn't happen at all. I'd be like, yes, chef. Immersion blender right into the container. Now, if you had, I'll wait.
Really quickly, that looks beautiful, but I want to check in with some of our folks who have been making dough with us. So,
can't hear you. I was waiting. I was like, eventually the sound's gonna hit my ears. Just wait for it.
I wish people could see your face. I wish the people could have seen your face. Okay, I want to check in with some of our folks that have been making the dough at home. What are some like cues? What should we be looking for?
What should we be looking for now?
Yeah.
By now you should start to see little fermentation bubbles kind of happening. You should see a little bit of something happening.
Should it be smoother? Should we look for a more creamy texture?
It should be a little smoother.
Okay.
Yeah, because the auto leak should be a little bit smoother. It should start to have little air pockets.
Okay.
Kind of forming in it. Again, depending how hot your head. So this is what I was also going to say. Don't get discouraged over it, because you are going to have different, depending on where you are, depending on what's going on with your oven, with your outside temperature, inside temperature, you're going to have some of those issues. Now, if you're worried about your pizza may have stuck, just give it a little shake. What? And I have a clean pan on top of it. All right, here we go. Spin this around. Man, Charlotte, yours is like, smell those jalapenos in there. All right, so the salad, a little bit of dressing. Just over the top. I'm gonna multi-use my tongs here. How about a little
I like
Parmesan.
some more dressing, please.
More dressing?
More dressing, please.
But you see how fast that was to emulsify it? Now, normally when you get you get your little side of Italian dressing on the side, you could do just shake it up. If I had a mason jar, I'd show you how to take that exact same dressing and just shake it up so it's a little more rustic. But I had this fancy immersion blender hanging around, so I may as well just buzz it up and show you how quick you can emulsify something. Is that enough dressing? That one did not. He's not making the cut. Sorry. Can't eat
perfectly coated?
They are. You know, I probably shouldn't have tossed these with metal tongs because I destroyed some of the little gem. But, all right, there we go. There's that. There's our pizza.
So wait, what lettuce did you use, chef?
That's a little gem, this guy.
So a little gem is?
Little gem, it's a romaine. Like a little, it's like a special romaine.
I kind of feel like little gems are like if butter lettuce and romaine lettuce
It is, it's kind of like a
tiny baby, it'd be tender romaine.
So good. This little guy,
okay.
This little lettuce is delicious. Okay, so the fried dough. So where are we at? Here we go. Oh, wait, I got one more. Anybody else sweating? Anybody else sweating? I'm sweating. It's hot. Working me. All right. So first of all, we'll take this pizza because this is ready to go. This has been cooling. So we'll take our super sharp. So here's how you do the cutting of the pizza. So hard down, right into the crust, and then all the way across. Spin it around, hard down. This one's obviously been sitting here for an hour.
Has anybody seen those Papa John commercials where like the guy like folds like 400 boxes in 30 seconds?
I couldn't do that. Here's a crunchy one. See
Ooh.
that? See how we did that?
Ooh, it's steamy. Ooh la la.
So it's brown on one side, it's held together, it's fully cooked. I mean, what could you ask for, right?
I mean,
all right, the donuts. So I want to show you the inside of a donut. Let me see if I can get
super excited.
They're really good.
Tompkins, do you eat pizza with a fork?
No.
Okay, I'm just making sure. I don't know.
What? No, I don't like to be so. I feel like it's finger food, right?
Right?
Look at how pillow. Do you see how pillowy that is? Watch. Ooh, pillow, pillow, pillow.
Oh, we do have a viewer. Callie does eat pizza with a fork, and she said, no shame. Callie, this is a safe space, and if you want to eat pizza,
I meant no disrespect at all, Callie. I think it's great. I think it's very, so you see our little hole structure in there?
Oh, look at that.
So if you were to let this age longer, this particular dough, or any of the doughs, it's not going to hurt it. It's completely fine. Charlotte, let me get your piece out of the oven. Let me move this guy over.
Please.
Out of the way here. I'll show you Charlotte's. Show me. Oh, look at that. Holy moly. See that one?
Woohoo!
So, again, just got to make sure we're all free here.
That's
free.
Beautiful. And so
hole in the middle. That's all right.
Are you familiar with like the pepperoni cup and how like pepperoni's cup like that? Apparently there's a
the hole
sign.
in the middle. That's all right. Hey,
I didn't see
happen.
it. It's perfect.
Listen to that crust.
That's mine.
Right? Get sound effect. Look at this. I just got to cut this. I just want to cut this piece off so I can show you this. Look how giant this piece of crust is. It's like.
You did a beautiful job.
Holy moly. We did a beautiful job. I hope that you have the best luck in doing pizza. I hope you make this over and over and over again. There's a reason why so many people open up pizza joints, because literally the cost of flour, water, yeast, salt is so low, and the amount of great things you can do with it is so vast that it's really, really fun. So every Friday night should be a pizza night. Just make it a thing. Start doing it. You'll eventually get to the point where you'll be like talking to people making pizza. You'll be like cutting it. You're like a total pro. And then eventually you can get one of our pizza peels. And you can start doing that. And that way when it sticks, it's always the best. When it sticks and goes in the oven, it's like everything goes off. You're like, oh. And there's no way you can be.
It's happened to everyone.
It's
happened to everyone.
So that's why the pizza pan is a great way. Guys, we'll stick around for more questions. If not, you can always catch us again. If you want to remake it or go back and look through it or just figure out more tips, you can always rewatch it. Go to our YouTube channel, hb.com/YouTube, and look at all of our fantastic videos. They're all there. The great Charlotte Samuel will be here next week doing a fantastic, will you give us a preview of what that class is going to be like?
Oh my gosh, we're going to be doing some quest from Texas Best winners. So we're going to do some barbecue type things.
Love it.
And some.
I heard you doing some pressure cooked ribs and some homemade banana pudding. Delicious. I love that. And also we have local chef Johnny Hernandez. We'll be here from La Gloria. He'll be here. I'll be moderating him. We'll have a good time together. That'll be on Tuesday, Wednesday. Full week. A lot of great stuff, guys. Thank you so.
Before you go, I want to see the dough you made at the beginning of the class and I want to see what it looks like.
Hey, where to put it? Here you go. Oh, wait, right here.
Oh, wait. Okay, here it comes. Ooh.
So I have little fermentation bubbles. The yeast that I got from all these has been really, really good. But you can see it's still sticking, but it has gained a little bit in, this is where I would kind of scrape it. I'm going to take it, just kind of turn it a couple times. Turn it.
All right.
Turn it, darn it.
That looks great.
Cover it. Again, not a bad thing to have a little water bottle by your side so you can spray it. That'll kind of keep things. Now, I will give you my one trick that I learned after screwing up a lot of pizzas at Cicconi's. If you have to dose it out too long, it forms that skin. I never realized until somebody came up and was like, hey, let me show you something. He got his hand wet and he patted the top of the dough, and the skin eventually went back to being normal because it kind of absorbed it, so it got dry. So a little bit of water on top will help your dough if it gets a little dry. Just spray a little water on top, keep it covered, and it'll help take the skin off. That's it. Guys, thank you so much for spending your Friday with us. I hope this was super enlightening. I hope that you make this over and over and over again. I hope you watch this. If you have any questions, to go back and rewatch, see where the tips and tricks are, grab the recipes. For this and other great recipes, you can always go to our website, hb.com/recipes. I almost had the KSAT tag. Almost did, and I just did. All right, so that's it. Thank you so much for hanging out. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, everybody.